You know the feeling. You're lying in bed and your mind is running through a conversation you had 3 days ago. Not the whole conversation, just the part where you said something and now you're not sure it was the right thing to say. You analyze it from every angle. You think about what you meant, what they might have thought you meant, what you could have said instead. And you tell yourself this is a good thing. You're being self-aware. You're doing the work. But the analysis doesn't stop there. It moves to the present. You notice the way you're breathing right now, and you wonder if you're breathing correctly. You notice the tone of your own voice when you speak, and you monitor it in real time, making micro adjustments so you don't sound too eager or too distant. You are constantly watching yourself. And somewhere underneath all of this watching, there's a quiet exhaustion. A feeling that you are always performing, always editing, always trying to fix something that might not even be broken. You are trapped inside your own mind, and the feeling that's supposed to set you free, self-awareness, has become the prison. This is the paradox nobody talks about. We are told that self-awareness is the key to everything. Know thyself, heal thyself, grow thyself. And you took that seriously. You went inward, you read the books, you went to therapy, you learned the language of attachment styles and trauma responses and core wounds. You can name your patterns, you can explain why you are the way you are, you can trace your anxieties back to their origins. But instead of feeling lighter, you feel heavier. Instead of feeling free, you feel more tangled. Because now, not only do you have the original problem, you also have the constant awareness of the problem. It's like you're in a small room and someone handed you a flashlight, and you're grateful for it, but now all you can see are the cracks in the walls and the dust in the corners. You can't unsee them. You can't stop looking. And you start to believe that if you just look hard enough, if you just analyze deeply enough, you will finally find the switch that turns all of this off. But you never do. What you're experiencing isn't self-awareness in its truest form. It's a hijacked version of it. In psychology, there's a distinction between two types of self-focused attention. One is called self-reflection. The other is called self-rumination. Self-reflection is curiosity without judgment. It's the ability to observe your thoughts and feelings like clouds passing through the sky. You notice them, you learn from them, and you let them go. Self-rumination is different. Self-rumination is when you turn that curiosity inward and it gets stuck. You aren't just observing the clouds. You are grabbing onto them, holding them, dissecting them, trying to figure out why they are shaped the way they are and what it says about you that they appeared in the first place. And instead of clarity, you get more confusion. Instead of peace, you get more anxiety. Because the brain was never designed to be the object of its own relentless scrutiny. To understand why this happens, you have to understand how the brain processes information. Think of your conscious mind as a spotlight. It can only illuminate one thing at a time. When you turn that spotlight inward, you are directing it at your own internal experience. And that's fine for a moment, but the brain has a feature called the default mode network. It's the part of your brain that activates when you're not focused on the outside world. It's the part that ruminates, that plans, that worries, that constructs a story about who you are. And when you habitually turn the spotlight inward, you are feeding the default mode network. You are giving it more material to work with. You are telling it, this is important. Keep analyzing, keep searching. And it does. It runs in loops. It creates a feedback loop where the act of self-awareness generates more things to be aware of. You become aware of your anxiety, and then you become aware that you're aware of your anxiety, and then you become anxious about being aware of your anxiety. It's a hall of mirrors, and you can't find the exit because you think the exit is more awareness. But the exit isn't more awareness. The exit is understanding that awareness without acceptance is just another form of control. This pattern often has its roots in something called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is a state of heightened awareness that develops when you've learned, somewhere along the way, that the world isn't entirely safe. Maybe you grew up in an environment where you had to monitor the moods of the adults around you to stay safe. Maybe you learned that if you could just be perfect enough, quiet enough, aware enough, you could prevent bad things from happening. So you developed a superpower. You learned to read the room. You learned to anticipate needs. You learned to scan for threats. And that superpower kept you safe then. But now you're applying it to your own internal world. You're scanning your own thoughts for threats. You're monitoring your own emotions for anything that might be wrong. You're trying to preemptively fix yourself before anyone else can notice you're broken. But the scanner never turns off, because the scanner believes its job is to keep you alive, and it doesn't understand that the threat is gone. It doesn't understand that you are now the one holding the flashlight in an empty room.
The way out of this trap isn't to stop being self-aware. That's impossible. The way out is to change your relationship to what you see when you look inward. And that requires understanding a simple mental model, the difference between the observer and the thinker. In your mind, there is the part that thinks, and there is the part that watches the thinking. Right now, you've probably identified with the watcher. You think the watcher is the real you, the aware one, the one doing the work. But the watcher can become just another layer of thought. It can become a voice that critiques the thinker. It can become a judge. And when that happens, you are still trapped in the mind. True self-awareness isn't watching yourself from a distance. True self-awareness is realizing that you don't have to watch at all. It's realizing that you can be in the experience without splitting yourself in two. So how do you actually do that? How do you step out of the hall of mirrors? The first step is to practice what psychologists call cognitive defusion. This is a concept from acceptance and commitment therapy. Cognitive defusion is the process of separating yourself from your thoughts. Right now, when a thought arises, you likely fuse with it. You treat it as truth. You treat it as something that demands your attention. Defusion is the practice of noticing the thought without buying into it. It's the difference between saying, "I'm anxious," and saying, "I'm having the thought that I'm anxious." It's a small shift in language, but it creates space. And in that space, you have a choice. You don't have to follow the thought down the rabbit hole. You don't have to analyze it. You can simply let it be there, like a car passing outside your window. You don't have to run after it. You don't have to wave it down. You can just watch it go. And here's why this works in the brain. When you fuse with a thought, you activate the default mode network. You tell the brain, "This is important, keep processing." But when you defuse, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that can observe without judgment. You shift from being in the thought to being aware of the thought. And over time, this weakens the neural pathways of rumination. You're not fighting the thoughts, you're just not feeding them. The second step is to practice self-compassion instead of self-correction. When you notice something about yourself that you don't like, your instinct is to correct it, to fix it, to figure out why it's there and make it go away. But that instinct is rooted in the belief that something is wrong with you, and that belief keeps you trapped. Self-compassion, as studied by researchers like Kristen Neff, is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend. When you notice a flaw, instead of grabbing the scalpel, you pause. You acknowledge that it hurts. You remind yourself that imperfection is part of being human, and then you let it be. This isn't about giving up on growth. It's about recognizing that growth doesn't happen in an atmosphere of self-rejection. It happens when you feel safe enough to look without the pressure to change. In the brain, self-compassion activates the soothing system, the part associated with safety and connection. It downregulates the threat system, the part that keeps you scanning for what's wrong. When you stop treating your thoughts as threats, your brain stops treating them as threats, and slowly the scanner begins to rest. The third step is to engage in what's called external focus training. When you're stuck in rumination, your attention is locked inward. You're in your head. And the more time you spend there, the more real that world becomes. But you have a body, you have senses, you have a physical experience of the world that is happening right now, independent of your thoughts. The practice here is simple. When you notice you're spiraling, you deliberately shift your attention to something outside yourself. You feel the weight of your feet on the floor. You notice the light coming through the window. You listen to the sounds in the room. This isn't a distraction, it's a recalibration. It's teaching your brain that the internal world isn't the only reality. In neuroscience, this is called grounding. It activates the sensory cortex and pulls energy away from the default mode network. The more you do it, the more you train your brain to toggle between internal and external awareness instead of getting stuck in one mode. Over time, you learn that you can visit your thoughts without living in them. The fourth step is to redefine what self-awareness means to you. Right now, you might believe that self-awareness is about knowing everything that's wrong with you, about having a psychological map of your damage. But real self-awareness is simpler. It's the ability to know what you're feeling in any given moment without needing to change it. It's the ability to recognize a pattern without spiraling into shame about it. It's the ability to say, "There's that old fear again," and then go back to making dinner. Self-awareness isn't a project, it's a presence. It's not something you achieve, it's something you return to. And you can't return to it if you've never left. You have to be willing to leave the internal world sometimes. You have to be willing to not know. You have to be willing to trust that you don't need to have yourself figured out to be okay. Think of it this way. Imagine you are a house. For a long time, you've been walking through every room with a flashlight, inspecting the walls, looking for cracks, checking the foundation, and you've become an expert on every flaw. You know every creak, every draft, every spot where the paint is peeling. But you've forgotten that a house isn't meant to be inspected all the time. A house is meant to be lived in. You are meant to sit in the living room and read a book. You are meant to cook in the kitchen without analyzing the cabinets. You are meant to open the windows and let the air in. The cracks are still there. You know they're there, but you don't have to stare at them anymore. You don't have to fix them today. You can just be in the house. You can just live. So, here's the thought that stays. You don't need to be aware of yourself every moment. You don't need it all figured out. You don't need to be the watcher, the analyst, the fixer. You just need to be here. And being here is enough. The self you're searching for isn't hiding in the shadows of your mind. It's the one reading these words right now. It's the one breathing. It's the one that was always okay, even when the flashlight was on.